training.
Okay.
So, when you decide what your business is going to be, if you're not already within that business, let's say for instance, you're in a job and you think you can do it better yourself. So, if you're in that situation, you will have been partly trained. If you're not, you're going to step into something which is a really, what we call a hostile environment, that you haven't got a clue what you're doing or what you're talking about. Even if you have the skill, you need additional training to apply that skill to a business. Mm-hmm. And I think this probably applies to you when you first arrived.
Go on.
Well, when you first arrived and we started to talk, you virtually had no business training, did you?
Not really, no.
You'd been to Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, in St Helens, yeah.
In St Helens?
Yeah.
So what you'd learn, you got to be very careful that you don't learn business of people who've been taught to teach business.
Well, they were a bit generic.
Yeah.
And I must admit, whenever I went to one of their classes or seminars or whatever, it was all a bit too generic. And I'm like, well, how does this apply for me?
Formulated,
yeah, because they were just reeling it off, and there was such a mishmash of people there, all trying to start different things.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see how it applied to me.
Yeah, well, the problem is with a lot of it, you do need to learn the basics of what the chambers teach you, like tax, VAT, what I call the boring stuff. You do have to learn that. But if you can learn from somebody who's been in business, then you'll learn the reality of it. You'll learn what they did, what they didn't do, where they went wrong, where they went right. For instance, we had, a while back, we had Paul Waiting, who'd worked for Richard Branson.
Oh, right, yeah.
We did an interview with him, and he actually learned from Richard Branson. I mean, he was already there anyway, but Richard Branson gave him a remit, and he went ahead and did it, and applied his previous training to this new concept. So you do need to be trained, and also, let's say for instance it involves a skill like a hairdresser or a craft person or whatever, you need to have done your apprenticeship, and you need to have a really good knowledge of what you're going into. If you haven't, then stay in your job and go on any training course that you can find that teaches you about what your particular business is going to be. Also, find people who have been in business and ask them. And when I first started in property, I had a friend who was a client next door, a Sunbad client, believe it or not, and he was really good in the property business, but he was a bit over good, if you know what I mean. One or two of the things weren't quite what they should have been. But what I did was, I went to see what he did, I listened to him. In some respects he said to me, whatever you do, don't do it like me.
Right.
So I learned the things that you don't do. I learned where he went wrong. So I used his knowledge plus my knowledge plus any knowledge I could find to set the business. So training is absolutely vital. And training in sales, you really must be trained in sales. So it's all right saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be a salesman, but in business, you are.
Because you're selling yourself.
You're selling yourself,
Yeah.
you're selling the product, you're selling a concept, whatever. So loads of books on selling. There's a guy called Zig Ziglar.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
The 7 steps to a sale. And you can get a tape for pennies and listen to it, and it's very, very good. Some of the American stuff on selling is absolutely brilliant. I mean, they really are red hot. So get all the training you possibly can.
What I noticed was when I worked for the local council, people hated training. They hated it. I'm not going on that training. I'd put my hand up, I'd be the first one to go.
Exactly.
Because, and especially when you're in that scenario, people hate being there. But for me, I always put my hand up first. Put your hand up first, join
You're
in,
learning.
speak to other people. And sometimes you think, oh, is this relevant for me? But sometimes you go to certain things and you go, why is this relevant? Because it's who you meet there.
Yeah. And you learn a bit. You learn a bit from every. You should train yourself every day.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually try and learn something every single day if I can. So I'll look at something and I don't understand that. So I'll root around and find out what is it.
Yeah.
I mean, for in the dance business, training is everything. You train and non-stop.
Yeah, and know your subject as well.
You know your subject, you go for your lessons, you do your competitions. The last time I spoke to Kyle Paulson, then I think he'd won 21 British titles. That's from when he was under 12, when he was under 16, when he was amateur, when he was professional. So in the total, 21 British titles. And I said to him, who trains you? Well, originally his father trained him, Paul. But what he said was now that between the two of them, they had so much knowledge that they also videoed themselves dancing and correcting.
Ah, right, yeah.
So you can do the same thing. I always apply that to videoing and use of the mirror, believe it or not. You can train yourself in the mirror, what not to do.
Yeah.
So training, vital. Get some and enjoy it.
Yeah.